Good morning, Dan and Amy. So, 4 hours is barely enough time to get all the zingers in that were bouncing around that hall at the University of Houston last night. Here's one of my favorites. This is from Ted Cruz talking about, Donald Trump being the only person talking about immigration or talking about border security. Where was Donald Trump when Ted Cruz was leading the fight against the Gang of Eight legislation?
But let me say, Wolf, I really find it amazing that Donald believes that he is the one who discovered the issue of illegal immigration. I can tell you, when I ran for Senate here in the state of Texas, I ran promising to lead the fight against amnesty, promising to fight to build a wall. And in 2013, when I was leading the fight against the Gang of Eight amnesty bill, where was Donald? He was firing Dennis Rodman on Celebrity Apprentice.
Our Dennis Rodman.
Bazinga.
Yeah, nice parallel action there. I like that.
Well, and it's a perfect segue. We go from the reference of one diplomat, Dennis Rodman.
Oh, yes, because he's been in North Korea. He's friends with Kim Jong-il.
Kim
Jong-un, excuse me.
Yes.
Kim Jong.
Yes.
Jong.
Keep going. And also make a racist impersonation while you're at it, too.
Bazinga!
What are you Al D'Amato?
I'm not
All right,
feeling
take it
well
easy
today.
over there.
Sorry.
Yes, you're right. Dennis Rodman, our de facto
yes.
ambassador to North Korea.
He is.
This is a real ambassador. His name is John Bolton. You may remember him as the U.S. ambassador to the UN, and he joins us now. Ambassador Bolton, thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Glad to be with you. Thanks for having me.
So I'm going to tee one up for you here. We'll start off with an easy one.
That sounds like bad news.
Yeah.
Well,
Never ends well. Just hit it long and straight, okay?
I mean, the president-elect has said this, so we have to discuss it. President-elect Trump said that in order to have a better chance to achieve peace in the Middle East, we can't appear too pro-Israeli. So if he takes a bit of a neutral position between the sides, that has a better chance of striking a deal. What do you say to that?
Well, no, I think that's simply wrong. I mean, it was clear if you go back to the example of the Camp David agreement between Egypt and Israel during the Carter administration, there was no doubt where the United States stood. But what it was trying to do was facilitate Israel and Egypt reaching a peace agreement. And because, as much as anything, of the visionary leadership of Egyptian President Anwar Sadat, that happened. There's no conflict of interest between the United States taking a strong pro-Israeli view and being a critical element to any progress on the Middle East. I think it's in the Middle East in particular, what we face now after 7 years of the Obama administration is spreading chaos. Not just ISIS, not just the Iran nuclear weapons program and its support for terrorism, but all across North Africa and the Middle East, state structures are falling apart, conflict is growing, refugee flows are increasing, and this is the last point in time when the United States needs to be neutral about anything there. It's the absence of a strong American presence and clear American goals, I think, have contributed to Russia's involvement and this general and spreading chaos.
Well, in addition to that, I mean, with the tense and the tense relationship between Obama and Netanyahu and the relationship between the two countries disintegrating to some extent, the time to play Switzerland with Israel is not now. It seems like you would want a presidential nominee of both parties to be, hey, this we need to reestablish, we need to strengthen the ties that bind between our one true ally in the Middle East.
Yeah, well, of course, in that sense, what Donald Trump is proposing is a warming of U.S.-Israel relations. Just to get back to neutral would be an improvement over what we have now, because I think there's no doubt that Barack Obama's been the most hostile president we've ever had toward the modern state of Israel. And I might say I don't see any fundamental distinction between his view and that of Hillary Clinton, Bernie Sanders, John Kerry, Joe Biden, just to name all the possible Democratic nominees, the latter two in the event that Hillary gets indicted. So I do think that this is an issue that's going to concern a lot of Americans, a possibility on the Democratic side of 4 or 8 years of a continuation of the Obama policy, and they're going to want to hear something on the Republican side. I think from the U.S. interest point of view, a strong pro-Israel U.S. posture is critical to our interest. And, if it's good politics for the Republican nominee, well, so much the better.
Ambassador Bolton, last night during the debate, and correct me if I'm wrong, I didn't hear anybody talking about the closing Gitmo. Did that surprise you, or were you hoping to hear from the candidates debate that issue?
Well, no, absolutely. I think it was something over an hour into the debate before we had the first foreign policy question. And, that actually represents a reversal of a trend I thought was underway, that there was more serious discussion of international affairs and the critical role of the president, which, after all, is the job we're talking about, to protect the country. That's the president's preeminent constitutional duty, and it's one reason I don't like this format at all. I don't even like calling them debates. It's very hard to have a 30-second answer on foreign and defense policy matters, and the kind of gong show approach that we see to these things. And it was in full view last night. I mean, I just think it's unpresidential and demeaning to have presidential candidates appealing for 30 seconds to rebut some 30-second allegation by another presidential candidate. And I think especially in the field of national security, where you do want to see judgment and character and the kinds of qualities that you need in a president in times of crisis, you're not going to find that in this kind of debate.
President Obama made 3 arguments for closing Gitmo. 1, it's a recruitment tool for terrorists. 2, it's not consistent with our values to keep enemy combatants behind bars, I guess. And 3, that it costs too much. Your response?
Well, he's wrong on all 3. Number 1, as a recruitment tool, the president just doesn't understand the difference between a pretext and a cause of Islamic radicalism. The day he succeeds in closing Gitmo, the propagandists in Al-Qaeda and ISIS and elsewhere will simply find a new pretext, and American civilization is filled with them. I think, if anything, the closing of Gitmo would be such a sign of weakness that the radicals would use it to their advantage. They say, see, push the Americans, and they back down. Second, in terms of our values, look, the Geneva Conventions, which I don't even think apply to terrorists who are being held because they don't represent a country. They don't meet the criteria of the Geneva Conventions. They're not part of an organization. They don't wear uniforms. On and on and on. And by the way, they haven't subscribed to the Geneva Convention. But even apart from all that, the Geneva Convention on Prisoners of War is unambiguous that you can hold prisoners of war for the duration of the conflict. This conflict is still going on, in case the president had noticed. And in terms of cost, yes, the cost is high. That facility in Gitmo is the equivalent of a pretty nice American hotel. I mean, these people, would they rather live in a cave in Waziristan or get 3 squares a day in Gitmo? I mean, they're doing well. They don't have to live that well.
So the most dangerous terrorists, the prisoners, they're going to be released if Obama has his way, and there's word that they might go to Kansas or Colorado. But what about the mastermind behind 9/11 and the mastermind behind the attack on the USS Cole? Where are they going to go?
Well, there's a lot of speculation that they're going to be simply given back to their country of origin, and we'll hear a lot of rhetoric that their countries of origin have pledged to keep them incarcerated, make sure they don't return to terrorism. That's worth the paper it's printed on. So I think that the president's simply pursuing an ideological obsession at this point. Let's not forget of the hundreds, even thousands of people who have been held at Gitmo since the 9/11 attack and our response to it. These last 90 people in there are the worst of the worst. These are precisely the people who we should put in there and throw away the key until the global war on terrorism is over, which is going to be a long time from now, unfortunately.
All right. He is Ambassador John Bolton, Senior Fellow at the American Enterprise Institute. Ambassador Bolton, thanks for joining us as always. Appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate your having me again. Thanks a lot.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.